Hey everyone, welcome back to the Realm. I'm Gina.
I'm Rich. Welcome back, everybody.
I'm Brian.
I'm Rob. How you doing?
And I'm Jen.
So we are back for season 3. Can you believe it?
Hey.
Season 3.
Yep, it's gonna be a good one.
So for those of you that have been following along, we have now acquired 2 fantastic minds. Rob and Brian have agreed to be a permanent. I called you fantastic mind. They have agreed. They have agreed to be a permanent part of the team. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna put out a small episode here soon, introducing everybody, talk about our backgrounds. But we wanted to get season 3 kicked off and rolling because we decided to open our podcast to actually do paranormal investigations, commercial and residential, on a case-by-case basis. We'll take them. So the spots are limited. And we had somebody take us up on the offer. And we conducted our first investigation as a team. Not our first investigation that we've ever been on, because we have quite like over 23 years combined experience with paranormal. No, longer, more
than that.
20, 30, 40. Oh, we're almost 60 years combined experience with the whole team with paranormal investigation if you combine all of our years together.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I'm like, holy crap. So we have a lot of experience on this team for paranormal investigations. And so this is our first as a podcast going into a commercial building. So today, Rich is going to take over the episode and lead us down the road of this investigation that we just recently had. So, Rich,
Yes, I am.
it's over to you, sir.
Well, as Gina said, this was our very first Realm investigation. Hopefully, many more to come. As she said, we're taking requests, whether they're residential or industrial or private places, that you hear about. We're open to doing that. I think this first investigation that we did was a great opportunity for all of us involved. All 8 of us were able to make it. Us 5 and then our significant others. That doesn't make sense. Oh, yeah, because Jenny's my significant other. Okay, makes sense. Sorry. I started counting. I'm like, something's not right there. Like we're missing a vowel.
And Kez can't be with us tonight, but Kez was there.
Yes, Kez, they are here in spirit, and Amy as well.
Yes.
Correct. And we have pets. All right. We investigated the old Racine Taylor Home Orphanage. What is the name of the actual location as it sits today, Gina?
The Elmwood Park Complex.
Elmwood Park Complex.
Yeah, it's the Elmwood Park Complex. So they've opened up these homes to like rent them out to businesses. There's a main town hall there.
Right.
Because it's like their own entity, and they rent out they rent out some of the open spaces anyway.
Yeah, and if you look it up online, you'll see pictures of old castle looking building, like an old, like almost like church or a school that you would think of back in 1800s. That was the original orphanage. The original building that was tore down is no longer there. Little bit of history on the location before we get into our thoughts and kind of what we did or didn't find, or I think we all have thoughts and feelings on it. I know I do. I know Gina's been holding on to some stuff, which I can't wait to hear because I have a lot of questions of some of the stuff I was listening to. Anyway, as I said, it was originally the Taylor Orphan Asylum. Sir Isaac Taylor came over from England. He was born in 1810. He died in 1865 in Racine, Wisconsin. When he passed, he left over $400,000 to build the orphanage. The cornerstone was laid down in August of 1868, and the actual orphanage itself, that building I was talking about, opened in July of 1872. We know that there, from what we can read from history, there were 3 deaths associated with that location. three women. We were told, or what we're told is they were caretakers, people that worked there. I believe one of them was a person that was there as an orphan and just kind of eventually started doing some of the caretaking stuff. So we know that there was at least three from what we were told. One of them didn't actually happen on the site, but it was a person that was associated with the location. The orphanage closed in 1955 due to state law of outlawing or banning orphanages. So, that whole thing. Then they started with the foster care systems and stuff like that, placing children and stuff like that with actual parents instead of having a big orphanage. The cottage buildings that are standing now, which would be part of that Elmwood complex, and one of the locations that we investigated, it was just one of several buildings that I can only assume are identical buildings from what they look like. They were built in the 60s and they were all completed by 1973. After the orphanage, it was like a Taylor home for troubled kids. It was still called the Taylor home, I believe, at that point. It was for more of kids that were lost their way, caused troublemakers, things like that. So you can imagine that during that time period, it probably wasn't a very pleasant place to be for some of those kids. After that, the last thing that we know of that was in there was a school. And in the basement, you can still kind of see that, they had classrooms and stuff like that before it was actually remodeled by the current owner. It's a nice building. I'm going to say that right off the bat. Going into it, I didn't expect it to look as nice as it did. It's very nice in there. The current owner of the spa did a wonderful job of making that place feel like a home. I mean, you walk in, the place is nice. I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know what the other buildings look like.
I
That
bet
would have been
they didn't
nice.
have a St. Patrick's Day tree.
She
And
did have a St. Patch. Yeah, it's an Easter tree now. I was
Is it?
How
video
about
today.
nice.
that?
One of the first questions I asked was there tunnels that connected the buildings together, and there was a general consensus that unsure or didn't know but didn't think so. And I thought that was maybe a little strange that being it was a complex like that, and if they were all together, you would have thought they would be connected at some point, because above ground they're not connected. They're just like a Night's Inn motel per se. They just got the long buildings that are separated, and you got to walk between them if you're going to go to them.
Right.
Each building,
If they were a complex, you would need maintenance access to not have to walk through the
sure,
elements.
exactly. And from the location we were in was actually like almost like a duplex per se. If you can picture that, it was two sides to it. There was the one side that we had, and then there was another side that we were not able to go into to do any investigation. It was 2 floors. I'm going to say there was probably, I think we had access to 3 of the actual rooms upstairs where tenants have their businesses for different things. And then there was a general lobby area, like a lounge area and another office. And then there was a basement that had several rooms. And then there was another room that was just a big empty basement area. When we got there, I don't know that anybody had any strange feelings, and I don't know that we expected a lot going in. We've done this enough, all of us, that 90%, maybe that's a little high, of different things you go in the check, you find nothing, or you can explain away different things. And I think that myself, when I left there, I wasn't expecting to find a lot. I was expecting to find the things we usually find, things that we could we could explain and dismiss as, well, it's probably this or probably that. But after listening to the recorders and some of the video, I have lots of questions and a lot of things that are unanswered, as we're going to get to everybody here and get everybody's thoughts on it. But I have a feeling that everybody has the same feeling as I do. I could be wrong, but
No, I thought this was going to be a dud as well.
Yeah.
I didn't have any I even went in some of the dark corners and sat by myself in closed rooms, and it just, I felt lonely.
It didn't
More
didn't
than
have
anything else.
it didn't have that feeling of heaviness. It didn't have a feeling of
Despair or kind of that buzzing that sometimes might go on.
yeah, it was very welcoming. It didn't I felt nothing that would tell me that I wouldn't go sit somewhere in a room in the dark and just sit there.
To
I mean,
me, sorry, so to me, there is a general creep factor there, but that's because I'm there regularly because my studio's there and I've had experiences there. And so because of that, when I'm there alone, there's certain times that I'm like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm like, yeah, enough for today, because you just kind of get that creep factor. But yes, it is very beautifully decorated. It's very comfortable and
Yep.
homey and very zen feeling. So
Yep.
you're right. There's nothing negative or nefarious there.
Yep.
But
yeah, and Shelley was a very gracious host
Yeah.
for inviting us in to check out the location. Now, how the night started, I think we walked in and we kind of got the little tour, give hugs and kisses to everybody because we were great. We were happy to be together again. We've had some trying times individually here and as a group together, but now I think that we have the band together. I think this is going to be a great thing moving forward.
yeah, great group.
I think we have a really great group, and I think all the personalities, I know I've said this before, and I'm not trying to get mushy, but I think everybody here meshes good together, and I think everybody brings something, and it's just, I'm glad to be a part of it, and I'm glad everybody else is in it because I think we're going to do good things. So, but we started out by doing our usual, let's put out the cameras. We won't get into that so much because that's a little bit of a sore spot with the camera.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, but
that's where the first paranormal activity started. It wouldn't let us set up our cameras and make them work.
That's what we're calling it.
Yeah, the sweet spirits weren't helping with that.
No kidding, huh? We'll get that figured out. And I think one thing we did find out was that the body cam is a very good tool. I purchased the second one.
I purchased two.
I mean, we did use a handy cam, and I have a handy cam as well. But what we found out was with using the body cam, you don't have to worry about not shaking. You don't have to worry about too much moving and having motion sickness or whatever that some people complain about when they watch the videos back or whatever. You just put it on, and the sound is great.
Yeah,
pictures are good. So I mean, we found that actually is a pretty good tool to use. I was impressed with it. We found a couple things using it, so that was great. The other thing was the recorders, which is one of my favorite tools that we use because it seems like if we're ever going to get anything when we go somewhere, we get a lot of different anomalies on the recorders. And after listening to numerous hours of recorders, that this was no exception. There was definitely things on there that questioned what was going on. Quick sidebar. I don't know when you guys are listening, but heard a lot of like breaths, like a lot of breathing, like a lot of breathing or sighs. So I did a little.
We're old and out of shape.
Well, Rob, and you're right, but I had to do a test because I wanted to make sure. Because I was like, I got to figure this out because I can understand breathing, but how many times do any of us go? We're just sitting there. We go, I don't. So
unless I'm trying to get up off the couch,
and for it to be that audible in a recorder, I'm thinking, how close do you have to be to that recorder for it to sound like that? Because I put one on the end of my bar in my basement, and I sat like 15 feet away for like 20 minutes, and I just did my thing. Was breathing normally. Every now and then I'd make a noise or I'd do something like, I'd deep breath or whatever. And I could hear it. But not so pronounced that it was like jumping out at me, but because I was listening for it obviously as well. So I could hear when I was doing it. And then I walked like 25 feet away to my stairway from where the recorder was. And I took a couple deep breaths and I heard nothing. So I think you have to be relatively close, probably within 10-15 feet of the recorder for it to be a pronounced sound of you can actually hear it. Otherwise, because you can hear a lot of things with the recorders and you can kind of tell distance. You can tell if someone's real close to it. And it helps a lot when we know where we put the recorders, because we know when we're in that areas. We had one area that we never went into. And we have stuff on that recorder that I did post for everybody to listen to. And myself and Brian listened to it, because that's the one I gave him, because he's fairly new on investigating. So what I did is I listened to my recorder, and then I gave it to him and Dani to listen to. And I told him, I said, here you go. I'm not going to tell you anything I found. Listen to it. Write down what you think you heard. I said, we'll look at it and I'll help you. I'll help you along. So you understand, if you're really hearing something or not. And we were we agreed that some of the things we heard on that recorder, we should not be hearing, because there was nobody over there. And when somebody did go over there, you could hear them walking over there. So it's
The thing about that recorder is where it was located. Like you said, we know nobody was around it in the room where it was. But when you would hear people talking or people doing the investigation, because we know the layout of the building, we understand where those people were. So when you're listening to the recorder, you understand the depth of the voice. You know the distance from that recorder that people are. So
right.
When you're listening to it, you know how far away somebody is. So when we could hear the breathing and those sounds, you can tell that it was closer to the recorder than what the voices were in the background. Like
Right.
You could hear the layers of the sounds, if that makes sense. And that was kind of the neat thing about it, is that it was a lot of breathing, but it was on the recorder, not just the sound on it. You could hear it like it's over the recorder. It was really interesting.
That's why I love EVPs. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like digital recorder picking up. It's just so interesting because of those layers. Now, I just want to interject for 1 second and kind of just let the listeners know. And did you, I don't know if you planned on listing the equipment, but can we go over the equipment that we used that night?
Sure.
Just to like sound off to start. So we had, I believe, 6 digital recorders amongst all of us. 4 of them were in fixed locations and 2 were being carried, maybe even 3. And we had 1 stationed in each room where the cameras were, and we had people that were carrying them. Aside from that, we had motion sensor lights that were a 10-foot motion sensor. So basically, if anything within 10 feet of it were to go past it, it would light up very bright white, and it would stay that way for a solid minute, and then it would reset itself again. We also had a light that was a glowing light, shaped like a ghost, that we had, like if you touch it or pat it really hard, it's supposed to change colors. So we brought that as a trigger object. We also had handy cams, body cams, spirit box, EMF, K2, millimeter, I believe, and
The
did
FLIR.
you have a FLIR? And
The
did you have a
FLIR.
REM pod?
No, it's a motion, it's a proximity sensor, but yeah, it's kind of like a REM pod.
Similar
Yeah,
to, okay.
basically.
And
Yeah.
then the FLIR, which is, if you're not familiar with the FLIR, it's basically like it picks up like heat signatures or just temperature signatures of anything. It could be really hot, it could be really cold.
Right.
It's used very often by search and rescue operations and fire departments to detect heat signatures of bodies when they're out searching. So I just wanted to put that out there so that as we're talking about it, everybody kind of knows like what we had in play at that.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that I don't know that we had a lot of activity on a lot of that equipment. We had some anomalies that would pop up, like the K2 would act weird. Nothing major,
Yep.
but once again, we can't rule out the use of our cell phones while we're investigating, because we know that they interfere with that frequency. So we had a couple little blips on that. Proximity meter never went off. Obviously the motion sensors did as we were walking around. I don't think we had any of them go off without anybody being there. Lure, we didn't have anything. I mean, other,
Orbs from No Shadow people.
well, Gina did see an orb on the camera.
Yeah, she had an orb.
she had one orb that came out of a room, but being that we
That's
couldn't
true.
record it, we couldn't see it again. But
And it was around that time that we saw that I had seen the orb. We weren't able to capture it on our cameras because we were having problems with the camera, but I was able still to sit at base camp and watch the cameras while people were investigating so that I could kind of like direct traffic if need be, if something was popping off in those rooms. And as I was watching, an orb had come by on the monitor, and it was actually the camera that was facing away from me down the hallway. So it was coming out of the main room. So we'll post a picture of the layout of this place. We'll do a rough draft of the layout so that you can see what we're talking about. So I'm at base camp, which is at the very front, all long hallway down from me. Behind me on the other side of the wall is a treatment room and a main like waiting room, if you will. It's a very large waiting room. And so there was an orb that came out of that waiting room into the hallway. I couldn't see it with my bare eyes, or like with my eyes, because I like turned to look as I had seen it on the monitor, and I could not see it with my eyes. But it was around that time that we ended up hearing a whistle, I believe. I think that was around the same time that we heard the whistle.
I actually have a couple whistles on my
Okay.
stuff to listen to.
Yeah, that we picked up. So I'll let you get back to it. But yes.
No, you're fine.
we did
That's
have
good.
one orb, but we were not able to capture it on
I'll start off a little bit with a couple of things that I noticed and some weird stuff before we just go around the horn and get everybody's take on what they thought, what they found. And then after that, we'll wrap up with general consensus and what we think. But and I'll go last with the things I found. I just wanted, before we start going around everybody, I just want to bring up a couple things that I noticed. The one big thing that stood out to me, that because we didn't really have any personal experiences, I don't think. The only person that had a personal experience was Brian, and I'll let him talk about that, which we did verify with video and audio, but he can explain that when we get to him. But at one point we were sitting in the basement, and this is one thing that bothers me because I don't know. We were sitting in the basement. It was myself, Dani, and Jenny. We were sitting down there and we were doing an EVP session. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this light starts flashing. We were down in the basement probably for a good hour, and we were probably in that room for a good 15, 20 minutes, and nothing happened. Nothing was going on. Other than when we walked in the room and the motion detector went off. I was telling my usual stupid stories and talking about a haunted chair, and that's a story for another day. All of a sudden, a blue light starts flashing and a red light. I thought the police were down in the basement. Out of the corner of my eye, there's red and blue lights flash. I'm like, what the heck is going on over there? And we all started looking. We're like, what is that? And it's just flashing red. And we're like, the hell is that thing over there? So we're shining a flashlight because nobody was moving. Nobody did anything. So we were like, well, it can't be a motion sensor. We moved around down here. We had just had Jenny walk over that way.
Yeah.
To see if we could make the motion detector go off, which she eventually did, but nothing else happened. So we're like, what the hell is that thing? So myself and Brian got up and walked over there, and we're like, it looks like a Bluetooth speaker. It had like a power button, a volume. It had different fast forward button. It was really weird. And we're like, what the hell is this? It looked like a speaker. And we're like, well, none of us are trying to connect. I said, well, maybe someone tried to connect to it upstairs and it's doing something trying to connect. We're like, it wasn't any of us. So we even tried to, I believe Dani tried to bring it up to see if it was something she could log on to. You know, there was nothing there listing up on her Bluetooth devices. So we're like, well, that's weird. We'll have to ask them when we go upstairs. And we went upstairs and we asked, and everybody's like, no, we didn't try to log in to anything. We didn't do anything. And we're like, what the hell? We're like, it's really weird because it didn't make noise. It was just a light. Well, then later on, during the spirit box session, music starts playing out of nowhere, coming from another room. And we're like, what the hell is that now? All of a sudden, because I have not heard it. We've been there all night, 4 hours. I didn't hear nothing. I've never heard that go off. Oh, it's the alarm for the front door. When the door opens up, it makes this noise. So me and Rob found that out. We walked in and investigated it and looked at it. I'm like, that looks like the same thing that's in the basement. But the one in that kitchen area wasn't flashing. It was just making noise. I'm like, I wonder if that's what's in the basement. is this. It's a thing to tell when someone's at the door or coming in the door. And we found a couple other ones in the hallway, and Brian even took a picture of it and Googled it. It's what it is. It's a sensor for like an alarm or a door sensor or whatever. The problem is listening to when we're in the basement, no one ever opens the door. I can hear them upstairs. You can hear the front door open and close when Kez leaves. You can hear the door open and close when the people before we investigated left. No doors. I heard no doors open or close during that time. To make this even stranger, Jenny tells me, "Oh, I heard that going off on several times on the recorder." I'm like, "What recorder were you listening to?" Because I never heard it go off on any of the recorders I listened to. She says, "Oh yeah, I heard it like 4 times." I'm like,
yeah, when I was taking my notation on that, I didn't actually mark that song because the first time it went off, somebody said it was a phone. I said, okay, it was a song. It was for Elise. A very
I asked her, I said, "Who's Elise?" She goes, "It's for Elise." I said, "Who's Elise?" No, that's the name of the song.
But who is she?
I don't know who that. Gets the hell out of me.
Not for her. But anyway, the third time it happened, I put on there, "Oh, that's a phone," because I think it was Gina. It's either Gina or Amy that said somebody's phone is going off, and it was the Furry Leaf song. So when that happened again, and Rob and Rich came in, I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, that's the phone." And then it was talked about how no, that's the door. And when the door opens, that goes off, which I found very strange.
And the only time that I think that the reason it went off when Rob and myself found it was that's when Kez left. So that makes sense why it went off then.
That makes sense.
I never heard it any other times that I listened to 3 or 4 different recorders, hours and hours and hours worth of recordings. I never heard that music except the time that we went and inspected it in that one little kitchen area and found out what it was.
I only
That's
opened
really
the
weird.
door. I only opened the door one time because the light outside, actually when I got there this morning, because I was teaching class there this morning, the light was on outside, like the outdoor light. So I got to ask Shelly about that to find out like how that light works. When I got there that night, as I walked up, the light went out. And I was like, oh, well, maybe it's like on a timer or whatever. Well, as I'm sitting at base camp, it would randomly go off and on. So then Kez was like, well, maybe it's a motion sensor. So I I opened up the door really quick to look and see was anybody just out there because it had just lit up again. And I don't think it's motion sensor because it was totally on today when I got there and I couldn't turn it off. So I have no idea how it works. So that's something we have to get to the bottom of. But I did only open the door that one time, but it does not coincide with any of the times that sound goes off that I'm aware of. Like I couldn't put it at those times.
Right. Now, like you said, did you open it and that's what turned the light on downstairs during that time? But then why didn't the music go off? So it's hard to put everything together because if that's how that works, the door opens, the music should go off, the light should go on.
Right. And
Not one,
I have
not
it
the other.
timestamped. I have it timestamped of when I opened the door to check on the light.
Okay.
And it's not at the same time that
Then I didn't hear anything.
It's not at the same time that you guys had seen the lights downstairs.
I specifically listened because I wanted to hear if a door opened or closed, and I could hear nothing. And I was like, that's weird. I don't know what that's all about, but that was one of the weirder things I had. And then the other weird thing I had, which I'm going to talk about now, and then Gina, when we get to you can add your point to it because I feel like it's something you really want to tell me. Is I had chirping noises all night long on the overnight recorder that we left there. I got a few weird things on the overnight one after we left. That first of all, I want to point out that when the heater turns on and turns off, it makes a lot of noise. So any kind of clicking or banging that you hear, and then you hear the heat, needs to be dismissed because I can't tell what's what. Now I had some I had some knocking that was isolated and I never heard anything turn on. So those were something weird, but the chirping was driving me nuts from What time did it start? I don't remember what time it started. We left at, where's my note?
Yeah, this is what I want to know. And then I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys because I want to wow you with right off the bat. 'Cause it's been looking at me.
We left at, I don't know what time we left at, but 3 hours and 45 minutes into the recording of that recorder, we left.
After, okay, so three and a half hours in, we had left. Okay.
At
of that
3:45, I hear us leave the building.
recording. Okay.
Then I start hearing some different things. At 5 hours and 56 minutes into the recording, I hear a whistle, or I describe it as a whistle. The best thing I can refer to it as sounds like baby birds chirping.
Okay.
But it's the reason I don't think it's that. Maybe I'm wrong. The only reason I don't think it's baby birds chirping, it's the same tune, the same boom, 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 stop. Then it's boom, 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 stop.
Okay.
Then
I
it's
have a
boom,
question
boom,
for
boom,
you.
stop. And it's like that. When you shut the recorder off, it's still doing it.
Okay. So it did it all the way up until I shut the
I hear
recorder
you
off.
turn the recorder off. Right before you turn it off, it's still making that noise.
Okay,
I have no idea what the hell it was.
I'm going to tell you guys something. This is going to blow your mind because I don't know how the fuck this is possible then. Okay. So part of the claims, I guess we should talk about the claims and why we investigated. We investigated because historically it's been spoken of as it's been a haunted location, that property. There's even homes that are around that neighborhood
Yep.
that claim to have activity and experiences that feel that it stems from
Brian can actually add to that because I think he knows some people that live in that area, so he can add to that later.
Yes. And so this was one of the claims. So this was one of the reasons we got our foot in the door to go do this. Okay. I have a studio space there and I had several experiences of just hearing different sounds and just kind of feeling, like that creep factor that somebody's around. Not that the place is creepy. Like I never feel unsafe, but you just sometimes feel like you're not alone. Okay. So, and then you hear random noises, things that you shouldn't be hearing. Now, you guys probably saw that in this location, you saw me pushing these remote controls to turn on different lights because Shelly has everything on remote, right? Now, some of the things that have happened is that lights are turned on or left on, knowing that nobody turned them off. Because there's been times when I've been the last one to leave in the evening and the first one there in the morning, and nobody has come at night. And there's things left on that I know I turned off or that were never on when I was there prior to leaving the night before. And we've had lights flashing when I've been there. The lights have started flashing. And so everything's on a remote. So at the front desk, there's 2 sets of remotes. You turn it on, it'll turn on the lights above the big window. It'll turn on the lights down the hallway or, like in the display cases. Another one controls the lights at the front desk that includes a sound machine that is set to play birds chirping. So it plays the bird chirping. You'll hear the whistling and the chirping, and it's baby birds. Now, there has been many times when I've come in the morning and those things are on, knowing nobody else has been there before me. So there's no reason for them to be on. Today, I came in and the light was on. The chandelier lights were on in that room. Nobody would have left those on from the night before. I mean, Shelly's just not. I mean, we're all very cognizant about turning off the lights when we're. So I walk in this morning, those lights are on. The reason that I wanted to know when the birds started chirping and when they were done is, number one, we never had the birds on at all while we were there.
Never heard them until that time.
That was not on. It was not on. The sound machine was not on at that time. It was not.
Where's that sound machine located at?
At the front desk where I was sitting with base camp. So it's at the front desk. There's that lamp in the corner that has those shelves. It's on one of those shelves.
Okay.
Now, the bird chirping doesn't start on the video, on the audio, until 2 hours after we leave, right? You said 2 hours and some minutes.
Correct.
Nobody's there because you didn't hear anybody come in the door. You would have heard the door alarm chime from that room because it's so close to where the chime's plugged in.
Correct.
So you don't hear the door chime. We know nobody's there. And all of a sudden you're hearing birds chirping. And it's chirping all the way up until I turn off the recorder. But guess what's not playing when I get there?
What?
Sound machine wasn't on.
Well, it was still going. No, I could hear it.
But I'm saying it was not going. It was not That's what's so crazy. It was not playing when I got there. So I was curious, like, did it turn on and then turn off right before I got there? Or were you able to hear it all the way up to the end? And since you were able to hear it all
I heard it all the way up to the
end,
end. Yep.
how is that possible?
Is it on a timer?
No, but I'm saying it. I'm physically there turning off the recorder and it's not playing because it's one of the first things I turn on when I come in the building.
Okay,
The
so
thing
it's
is I
not on a
turn
timer.
correct. So it's not on timer. And that I know of. I know she had some lights on the timer to turn off, but not to turn on. So they're supposed to, like, if people forget to turn off the lights, it's supposed to turn off at 7 p.m. in the evening. But I think she took off the timer because I don't think that was working very well. So I think she took it off the timer. Either way, it doesn't turn them on. It would only turn them off. But when I got there, I walked in and I'm like, oh, I got to grab the recorder first thing. So I go and grab the recorder. I had not turned on the birds chirping yet at all. Like, I hadn't turned that sound machine on. So I'm a little, I don't know how to explain that. I can't explain it. And my guess is I thought that maybe they turned it on whenever after we left, because we have found those lights and those sound machines turned on when we come in the morning.
I'll go back and listen right from the minute we leave, but I write down constant whistle at 5:56.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's so crazy. Like, how is it being
I'll have to go
picked
back and
up,
listen.
but it's not even
Make sure.
playing? So it's like, is spirit like imitating these chirping noises now? Or
But
what?
even if that's the case, even if it was on before that, it doesn't explain that when you walked in, you didn't hear it going off, but I could still hear it going off.
Right, it wasn't playing when I walked
So,
in.
it's weird.
So my mind is blown at that evidence. Like, that is pretty incredible that there is something there that creates that noise, but nobody was there to turn it on. Regardless, nobody was there to turn it on. And that was some of the claims, is that we have people turning on and off. We have, for some reason, the lights are turning on and off.
Yep.
So anyway, that was really like what I wanted to drive home to you guys, because that was pretty weird, pretty incredible.
Jenny, what do you think? What's your general consensus of the things you heard or your feelings from being there? We'll start with you.
Well, I know that I was listening to the recorder, and if somebody could clarify which room this was, that it appeared like there was a dentist chair in it, and it's where that sound machine was when you open the door. Which room was that? Channel 1.
Shelley's office.
Shelley's office.
Got to be.
That's the recorder I listened to. And I tracked every time that refrigerator went on, and every 20 seconds after that refrigerator went on, the bang that happened. So that was a very consistent thing. So many times people would hear the bang, and then you'd hear somebody say, "Did you hear that?" I can explain that. You know,
Okay.
it's very consistent. The clicking that I heard, I started documenting it just because I was hearing the clicking. It would be like click, and then like a couple seconds, and then it would be click. That was not consistent. And when Rob was in that room investigating, it clicked and he heard it. And he said, "Was that you that made that clicking noise right next to me?" I heard it one other time shortly after he went into the other room and started talking. And I heard multiple clicks. After that, never heard a click. It was not consistent with anything else. It wasn't something that was like happening just every 20 minutes or just sporadically. It was very defined when those clicks happened. So not to say that they were anything paranormal, but it was a little bit strange. One of the sounds or words that I heard right near the beginning, they were doing baseline readings. And I think it was Dani and Amy. And I heard a very distinct hi. And it was just really misplaced. Now, I'm wondering if it's somebody, like maybe Dani yawned and it came across a strange way.
We need BJ, we need Brian and Dani to listen to that.
Yeah.
And because they would be able to tell if it was her. I don't know that was her. This
The
one with the
knocking
high.
was very interesting because it's right when Rob left the room. And it was actually before he left.
Oh, he was in the room still.
In the room because he was still talking.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a knock that just went like really loud. And there was no comment on it. Rob is really good about articulating when there's a sound in the room.
Mm-hmm.
At one point he said, That's my stomach. I'm hungry. If anybody heard that on the on the recorder. So I mean, he's very good about, some people are better than others, but Rob is really good at saying when there's a noise that was me or that was so and so. So Kez is also really good about that. But that I was very surprised that Rob hadn't commented on. So that would be something I would want him to listen to and say, oh yeah, you know what? This is what that sound is. Right near the end, I had a lot of sighs, a lot of breathing, a lot of sighs that seemed right next to the recorder, and there was no one there. And then there was a word of some sort, like a 3-syllable word. It sounded like, I couldn't place what the word was. It sounded like it started with I. And after our spirit box activity, I know there was talk about Iowa. We had some discussion around that. Other than that, I know that we had our lights. The K2 reader was going off a couple of times where all of a sudden it would have a lot of activity. Not sure if that had to do with a cell phone or if it had to do with something else. It was just something strange.
I don't think that was
consistent. Once we were
consistent.
downstairs and once when we were upstairs.
Yeah, I don't think that was consistent enough to use that as anything other than
Right.
it was just random, kind of like the spirit box session.
Mhm.
I think it was very random and very, very sporadic. So I don't know that there was anything really coming through on that.
So no, my overall experience was that I found some odd things, nothing that was, extremely exciting, but there were a few pieces that I was really hoping that others could listen to and maybe help justify, what is that sound? What could that sound be? But again, some interesting stuff, more than I was expecting.
And I'll send something out tomorrow. When I go to work, I'll type it up on Word like I did with the other ones and send it out to everybody that we can go back and listen to a couple of the anomalies that she's speaking of, because I listened to them myself, and there's a couple there that, like she said, I could go, it's probably somebody, or it's this, or it's too vague or too quiet or whatever to call it anything, because you can't go one way or the other. So then you got to throw it away, because if it's a whisper, it could have been one of us, especially if you hear people talking. The one that she hears the 3 syllables, like to say I, right before that you hear Dani talk, and then it sounds like maybe Gina starts to talk, and then it's really quiet. The problem with a lot of these as they're so soft and whispery, it doesn't make sense why anybody would say what it's saying in a whisper. And those are the kind of things that I look for when I'm listening to stuff, is things that don't fit. And some of that, the couple of things she's talking about don't seem to fit as to why they would be where they're at. So I think, like we spoke before we get on to everybody else here, that going into it, I don't think we expected much. We didn't expect to find a lot, which would be a good thing. We're not going in there to tell somebody, man, you got a lot of stuff going on. We're going in just to see what we can find and prove. Is there something going on? Is there not? Or is it explainable? And I think from everything I got 4 pages of, 13, 14, 15 plus different things that are anomalies that just shouldn't be there, that don't fit. So, I mean, I'm open to anybody else listening to them and telling me, no, it's this, or it was me, or like Jenny says, we need that hi just doesn't fit, especially how it's said, someone didn't go, hi, hello. It was like, hi. It's like real weird. It's strange. You got to listen to it. It's kind of like the Amy one.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit. Something's not right there.
What we will do is we will be, I'm going to create a video, like a YouTube video, like, dumping the audio in there. It'll mostly be audio, but we'll also have some of the body cam footage in there.
Yeah.
And so that way our listeners can go and listen to it. So
yeah, and if anybody out there hears something we don't hear, by all means, let us know, because
listen to it with headphones. And
I think it would be awesome to get some comments as to what they potentially think it is, because could be something that we're not even thinking about.
Right.
That's good, Gina. If you can get that stuff out, get that out on YouTube, just because there are a lot of people who are asking me too. They're curious to hear the stuff that we found, and since a lot of our stuff is audio, like everybody is kind of eager to hear stuff.
Wait a minute. We have fans. There's people that want to listen to it. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah,
That's the rumor.
I don't know if
like-
they're necessarily fans of us.
Don't ruin
I
it
don't
for
want
me.
to
Just
give
say
us
yes.
that much credit,
Say
but I
yes.
think
Yes, we have
they're
lots of
interested in what we may have found.
Well, that's very good. Jenny, you got anything else to add, or should we move on to Brian and see what Brian thinks?
Let's move on.
All right, Brian, give us your take on the Taylor
Well,
home complex.
it was a really cool place. We were excited to get in there just because everybody has heard stories about Taylor Home. I mean, that's one of the places here in town. People hear about that, and it's just everybody seems to have known about it. I actually, somebody who I work with lives very near there and has had a lot of activity in their own house that is super interesting, and a lot of it goes back to a lot of similar stories that other people who live in proximity of Taylor Home have had similar things. So it's just an interesting place. It seems like people who know it seem to have stories. So it was cool to get in there and investigate. Being there that like during the course of the night, it was like nothing really jumped out. There'd be a couple of things here or there that were interesting, and you couldn't wait to get to the review the evidence to see what we got. But it was pretty benign for the most part throughout the night. So getting some of the EVPs and getting some of the stuff that we got was really cool, because you get the other side of the investigation. You know, one part of it is actually being there. The second part is reviewing everything and having a critical ear and an eye to try to see things, and then, you know, you can start ruling things out. Like, that's the really fun part of it, because you kind of get the fruits of your labor. And if you don't come up with anything, that's almost just as good, because it means you did your job thoroughly, you know. And if you do find things, you have to have both things. You have to be critical enough to rule out things, and that just supports the other stuff that much more. So I'm glad that we all kind of look at it that way. You know, if you hear a clicking sound that seemed like it didn't have a pattern, but it also didn't seem random enough to be something, throw that out, because there's nothing that we can tie that to. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I think you have to do, because that makes the few things that we did get even weirder. So the first thing that kind of stuck out during the investigation, myself, Danny, Rich, and Jenny were downstairs in the back room that was just being used for storage, but it was almost a soundproof room. I mean, that room was dead quiet, and on the other side of the wall was actually, I think that's where one of the furnaces was. Like, there was equipment in that other room. You couldn't hear anything. Like, that was the one place where you couldn't hear when anything clicked on and off. It was very quiet, very soundproof. So the four of us were in there, started doing our session. The first thing that happened, Danny kind of put her arm out. So I was on the floor with my legs straight out. She was sitting on a stool next to me with her feet just kind of in front of her. I can't sit crisscross applesauce. Those days are over. So my feet were straight, and I kind of saw her put her arm out like she wanted me to get a little bit closer. So I stood up and got next to her, and she asked me if I touched her foot. And I said, no, I didn't touch your foot. And then I said, well, what did it feel like? And she kind of pushed on the top of my foot. And I said, no, I didn't do that. So we thought that was strange. But then after reviewing the body cam footage that Rich has, we were able to check that one off and see that when I stood up, my foot did touch her foot. We don't know if it was enough or the right angle on how she said it was, but it had to have been me. So we threw that out. But that was something that we were kind of taking with us, like, wow, we can't wait to see what else happened with that. But then going through the body cam footage, we can rule it out and say that I got close enough in the dark, and with the style of shoes that we were wearing, I couldn't feel it that I did that. So it was great to have that footage to be able to rule that out. Now, the second part of what happened in there, after Danny says that her foot was touched, I said, no, I didn't touch your foot. Then I stand up and I heard just like that. And I said, did anybody just laugh or breathe strangely or make a weird sound? Everybody said no. They asked where it came from. I said, it sounds like it was between Rich and Jenny. Nobody else heard it but me. I heard it clear as day. I thought, I looked around, didn't see anything. We just kept on going. Once we were reviewing the body cam footage, Rich was able to hear the breathing that I heard. And it's clear as day. And when I said it sounded like it came between Rich and Jenny, when he reviewed it on the body cam footage, it sounds like it's on him. Like it sounds very close to where his body cam has to be. And it's very distinct, it's not anything like it was audible enough that I heard it and it stood out, and it was great that we were able to capture it.
Yeah, the rest of us didn't hear it.
Nobody else heard it. That was the wild thing, is that I heard it clear as day, and I don't know how I was able to hear it and you guys didn't, but it was great that it was validated with that body cam footage.
Right.
And it was really strange. Now, what even makes it more strange that Rich can speak to, because you found the excerpt.
I'll bring it up right now. I'm gonna bring it up. I emailed it to you guys. Did you guys see it?
Yep.
All right. Now I'm also going to say I was able to also catch it on the recorder that we had. Okay. So we have it on several different tools that we use. Now, I didn't know this because I didn't read this article till after we were done investigating, but this stuck out to me. I sent this out to everybody to read. I was reading because there was only one other group that ever investigated here. That was Milwaukee Paranormal. PMI investigated there. I'm going to read the actual excerpt from this article here of someone that went with them when they did their investigation of this exact building. It says, after listening to the staff and their stories, PIM began the investigation. There's nothing quite like being in an empty school building after dark. While I was there, for several minor incidences occurred, mostly small noises that were left unexplained, which we can all attest to. We heard a bunch of little things. The investigation team went to great lengths to come up with plausible explanations for many of the incidents, but some were left unknown. During controlled silences, we heard the sound of a soft female voice whispering something and a chair shifting near room 23. Don't know what that is, but there's also talk of a soft female voice whispering, which if you look back to some of the findings on the recorders, we have some that are whispers that I mark as sound female. That's not the part of the article that stood out to me. In the basement, we heard many other shifting noises along with creaking and shuffling sounds, some which could be attributed to the building settling, while others seemed too distinct. Here's the part that stuck out to me when I read it. One of the staff members that was there heard a series of 3 short breaths in front of her face while sitting in the basement classroom, but it was not recorded on any audio, as she was sitting a distance away from the members with the recording devices.
But we
super
the same. I don't know. Interesting. Absolutely.
Well, what's interesting about that is that they say she heard it in front of her face, and you were wearing the body cam right, kind of below your chin, like kind of in the collar of your shirt. And it sounds like it's real close to your body camera. So if there was something there, she's saying she heard it in front of her face. It could have been kind of in that same area on you down there. How I heard it, I guess I was just lucky, but we were able to pick it up, which was super cool.
I'd really be interested in her listening to, like, reaching out to her.
Sure. Yeah. Whoever that was, but yeah, interesting. Yeah. I mean, and for us to hear it in that room makes sense, because that was probably, like you said, one of the most soundproof rooms.
Yes.
You couldn't hear anything. When the heat turned on, you could hear the heat come on. When it went off, and you could hear a pin drop in that room. There was no other noises going on in that room. So, and we did our EMF sweep, and we there was not real high EMF anywhere in the building, just by some of the electrical boxes. But I mean, the baselines were pretty flat everywhere, and including in that room. So I think that was probably the first thing that happened. I didn't, when it happened, I didn't expect to get, because that's just how it happened. Did you guys hear that? No, this is what I heard. Okay. We didn't hear it. We're like, okay, whatever. And I'll tell you, I shit you not, when I heard it on the body cam, I was like, holy shit, I caught it. I'm like, I can't believe, and it's clear as day. And you know, it's what he heard because he imitates it exactly. It's like, holy crap.
That was the
That
cool
was a good
thing,
one.
is that I heard it clear enough
That was a good one.
that I could parrot it back in the moment that I heard that. And then when you hear it on the body cam, that's exactly what it sounds like. So it was,
no doubt.
So that one was really cool. Reviewing the recorder that was in the bathroom by itself, that was a fun recorder, just because we knew nobody was in that room or around it. So there was a lot of breathing, a lot of exhales and breaths that seemed very close to the recorder. There was one early on in the recording that sounded like a breath, but it sounded like a word. It almost sounded like Michelle is what I heard. And the only reason why that stuck out is because during the spirit box session,
I was just about to say.
yeah, Dani was the first one to do the spirit box that night, which I thought was great because she had never done that before. She's a super skeptic and she has a great ear. So putting her in there, I think she only got one word during her whole session. She just blurted out Michelle was the one thing that she had. And the only thing that makes that interesting is that the person who owns the building, her name is Shelley. So that was interesting. It doesn't mean any of that is connected or if that's what it actually was, just an interesting piece on the recorder. The only other thing that I found really interesting, and I don't know if anybody else had a chance to listen to it yet, is what we'll call the chicken butt incident. So at one point in the night on the first floor, myself, Dani, Rich, and Jenny were in one of the studio rooms. It was the one across from your room, Gina. And we were sitting in there, and at a certain point, I say, well, there was a lot of kids here. You know, if there's any kids around, kids like jokes. We should tell some jokes. And I say to Dani, do you know any jokes? And she does our nephew's favorite joke, which is, guess what? Chicken butt. And so she did that to me. She does, well, guess what? I say, what? She says, chicken butt. And when we're in the room, we kind of chuckle, but that's it. On the recording that was in that bathroom by itself, that was slightly down the hall from that room, when she hits the punchline of chicken butt, you can hear a scream or a laugh. It was almost a banshee sound, almost a real interesting sound, but it was on point with the joke. And so, I mean, that it was a little bit was wild for us to hear that. And we kind of theorized maybe it was the echo of our laugh hitting that recorder. Maybe it was some sound mixing from us, so you kind of get that squeal. Now, it didn't sound like that, but we were trying to rule things out. But as you listen to the recording a little bit further, we laugh again. You don't get that same sound. So I don't think that it had anything to do with us. It was very out of place and very on the nose with the joke, which kind of stands to reason. I mean, if you're in the, 1950s and somebody breaks out the guess what chicken butt joke, that's going to be funny shit. So, I mean, now we need to go back. And if we get any EVPs that say chicken butt or guess what, then I think we have it figured out. But that piece was really interesting. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to listen to that part yet. I know
we did go back and listen to it from the body cam because I had that on in the room, and you can hear us laugh, and it doesn't sound like that.
And you don't get the sound that we heard on the other one.
No.
Oh, no, you're right. I meant what about the voice recorder that was with us? Did you pick it up on that?
I'd have to go back and listen to that. I did not go back and listen on the voice.
Okay.
recorder.
Oh, you didn't go
I
back.
got to figure out what
That's
point
I
that was. It was easier to find on the body cam.
That's
I
right.
could
Yep.
see where it was. The other
Yeah.
I have to figure out the timing on it and go back and listen to it. But
Yeah.
I'd like to, if everybody else could get their take on that and see if we think it's an echo, if we do think it's something else. Just falls in another category of weird stuff that we found during evidence review that leaves us scratching our head. You got anything else there, Brian, or we can move on to Rob?
No, I'm good.
All right, Rob, let's hear it. What was your take on Taylor Home?
So, I would like to say I'm glad to be part of this whole realm podcast. That's really cool. I'm glad to be part of this. I'm really glad to be doing some more investigating. I mean, as we keep talking about negative stuff and some investigations that we kind of missed out on, it was really good to be investigating again. And of all people, I'm glad we're hanging out and doing it because we've done it before and it has been a great fit. And even, bringing in some other people with it too, it's been pretty awesome. It was a good investigation. When I got there, I mean, the place is very zen, right? It's very zen. So when you're in there, you're like, it doesn't even feel haunted. It's too relaxing to even have negative feelings in there. So right away, it just didn't have a weird feeling to me, or I'm not really claiming to be a sensitive or anything, but sometimes you get that feeling when you're in these places. And despite some of the camera situations that we had to work through, I did a lot of stuff on my own. Okay, I sat in a lot of the rooms by myself in silence, and I know that there was the empty concrete room in the back. You could really hear, if anybody was in the next room, you could really hear it. But I tried in the back room where I believe where you guys claimed you have heard the breathing and stepping on a foot. I sat back there by myself, and I didn't get any uneasy feelings in either of those places as well. So when that kind of stuff happens, it makes me more reluctant to do any kind of, I'm kind of lazy, if you don't know. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm kind of lazy, and that listening to evidence is difficult for me because I am that squirrel brain all the time. And when everybody else is it's well, it didn't really feel like anything, so I've been kind of lazy about it. And I'm not going to sit there and whine about how busy, but I'm in the middle of some busy work, shutdown stuff and everything. So I really haven't done. Now everybody's talking about it. So me and Amy started listening to some of it and listened to it for a little bit. And actually, I didn't even ask her for her notes. I don't think she came up with anything interesting. But in my recording, we had posted 1 hour and 8 minutes into it. Me, Kez, and Amy are down the hallway close to where Gina's office, right? Suite, your office, your suite is. And we were doing some EVP. And I had told Amy to maybe, because it used to be an orphanage, that maybe she should try and talk to these kids as she can have a kind of a sweet voice around other people, but at home it's completely different. And so I said, maybe you can do it, with your motherly talking or something experience. And during that time, there's a voice that is kind of out of place that says Amy. And I know it's not my voice. And it does not sound like Kez's at all. And it does not sound like Amy. I don't know why she would say her voice, but to me, it's clear as day. It's Amy. And it's even the expression that's like, Amy, oh, this is Amy, or some to that effect.
It's almost like they were excited about it.
Yeah. Right. So,
very strange.
it's until you live with her, then you won't be so. I'm just kidding. She's going to kick my ass, right? But she isn't home either. So it's I can make these jokes. So that's really all I got so far. And it seemed to be more alive than what we thought it was. with the EVPs, but yes, the recorders are probably the best tool because
think
you'll
one
hear
of the
stuff
things-
more than you see. And I wanted to talk about the clicks in that room because
Yes.
at first
Yeah.
I was thinking that maybe it was something outside hitting on the wall, but it didn't sound like it was outside. Like maybe a branch if it was windy, but I don't think it was windy. Now I'm in trouble because here's Amy. So no, it was it sounded inside to me, and I don't know if it was mechanical or anything. Yeah, and I don't know what it was. And I felt like I didn't spend a lot of time in that room, but I did talk the entire time I was in there. So
You don't remember making like a knocking yourself to do something that you can recall?
no, I asked it to knock, and I remember the clicking kind of sound, but the actual knocking, I would have to hear that recording again.
All right. Yeah,
To-
it's on there.
To go back and
Wait, it's not
check
on
it.
there. I forgot. It's on there. I didn't send out the minutes of where to look. When I do that, you'll have to listen to it because
Yeah.
it, like I said, I feel like you would have said something and you didn't. So that's why.
Well,
it's
just
on to me.
maybe if I hear it, maybe it'll be like, oh yeah, that was me kicking
Right.
nest or
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have a lot of anything exciting to say. Maybe when I listen, especially the stuff where I'm alone, maybe then I'll find something else.
Right.
I
One of
didn't
the
feel
things Rich and
intimidated
I
or
was
possessed.
we were talking about how intimidating it can be if you have too much evidence review to do. For example, if you leave recorders out all night, we have one recorder out all night, but many times we could be investigating for a couple of days. And now you've got 10 devices, 48 hours apiece. And I'm like, not even going to go there. I'm like, I just can't.
Well, right, but
But if
once
you
we
look
get
at it and say, all right, I'm going to sit down for 1 hour and I'm just going to be totally dedicated to this. I'm just going to take my notes. I'm going to listen for strange things. And I got through that and I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's only a couple hours left on this device, so I can go through it. I think that that's helpful for me to kind of keep me going instead of having days worth of evidence on so many different devices that everybody has to look at.
Well, when the rumors of the rumor of having fans and maybe as we acquire more and get sponsorship, then we can spend the entire day
The
because we won't
entire
have to
day.
work. That's right. All we'll do all day.
No.
Go through evidence.
I
Everything
think
will
we
be
need.
super easy. Because yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot. And I always wondered if other shows like when you watch like Ghost Hunters and they would
There's people listening
do
to
those
that.
bigger. Yeah. Do they have
They're
other
not
people?
doing that themselves.
That's
There's no
a
way.
lot of evidence to go
Yeah.
through.
We can get our own show maybe someday.
We as a group
Dude,
need to
someday
work
it'll happen.
smarter.
I'll win the lottery and make it happen.
No sponsorship.
We
Please.
need to work smarter, not harder. If we do more investigations like this, I think this is more in the wheelhouse. I think this investigation was a good investigation for our first one as a group together. We've all done it before, except for Brian and Dani, and I think they did a great job.
Yeah.
I think they did an awesome job. So I think they're a great addition to our team.
Oh yeah.
But I think it was a good first one because we were able to go through pretty much all the evidence, and we actually came up with stuff. To your point, sometimes you don't get stuff in 4 hours. People live in a house for 30 years and they say they got stuff that happens every now and then. You're not going to go in there in 4 hours and walk away and go, oh man, we got all this stuff. You're probably going to walk away going, there ain't shit happening here. Well, in
Right.
4 hours, it might not happen. So, I mean,
Which is why leaving
you
that
know.
single piece of equipment there to record after we
Right.
leave.
Right.
Yes, my kids.
And I thought that was a great, that was great. And like I said, I did find some weird stuff on it when we did it. So, I mean, it was stuff that leaves me scratching my head. It's nice to know that there was nobody there. So anything I heard was something that I needed to
correct.
pay attention to because it could either be something or nothing. And a lot of it was like clicks and bangs and stuff, which could some of that stuff was probably that refrigerator.
Yep.
in
Right,
that-
because
in
the
that back room.
pizza. That's why I left the pizza out. You know.
The pizza.
Well,
yeah.
And I tell you, I mean, this is why I'm a
Pizza.
fan of like, I don't mind long investigations, and part of this we're going to cut out, but just to interject here really quickly,
Mhm.
I don't mind. What I do like is having shorter periods of time in the building and longer periods of time of equipment running where we don't have to worry about any pollution. at all.
Mhm.
We don't have to worry about somebody accidentally whispering. So having a few hours, 5 hours, whatever, of audio running after the fact and video that we can go through, because I tell you, I mean, yes, I'm interested about the type of activity that happens in the proposed haunted location while people are there, but I'm really fucking interested as to what goes on when nobody's there. That's the
Right.
big, like, I guess I don't know, like the big mystery I want to solve, or like just, I mean, because that to me speaks more volumes than when somebody is there, investigating. But that's me. That it just, I love that.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you can debunk 98, 99% of it, that 1 or 2% that's left is much more magical. When you
Correct.
get that, like,
Right.
I can't
Mhm.
explain it, and
Right.
it's fun.
I think we're good. I think we're good at that individually, because we've always been that way in our past lives of investigating, is we're really good at throwing out the bullshit. We don't think everything's paranormal. We listen for the stuff that's the anomaly, and we do our due diligence on trying to prove or disprove it. I think there's groups out there that every little tick, every little bang is something's going on, and that does nobody any good to come to that conclusion. So I think us as a collective group, I think putting our heads together and talking about it like we are now, which we're going to do on these podcasts as we do our investigations, we're going to use them as a podcast to go through the stuff, so we can bring the content out there to the listeners, and so people can maybe there's people out there that want to be investigators, and they listening to us, they can get something out of it. But I think there's a lot of groups out there that everything's paranormal, and we've talked about this before, Rob. This isn't nothing new that we've said to each other or to other people. There's a lot of things out there like that, and we've known people like that everything's scary and everything's paranormal and it's a ghost, and it's not.
And
Which makes all these little things we found in this investigation, I think, even more amazing, because I have more questions than answers before we walked into that building. I mean, I'd like to go back again. I don't know what anybody else thinks, and I don't even know if that's a possibility.
Well, now it makes it more exciting, right? After all that.
Yeah.
A little bit more controlled silence, and
going in with a game plan, knowing like the evidence we have now and trying to build that.
and our new DVR system, it'll be great.
Yes, and I will definitely talk to Shelley. Sorry, Rob, were you did you give all the evidence that you wanted to talk about?
Yes,
Okay.
that is it.
So if you don't mind, Rich, I'll just go next. I don't have a
Yep.
lot.
Nope. You're next.
Just simply because I sat base camp most of the night. That was something I wanted to do, just because I do have a vested interest in that building by by having studio space there. So because of that, I wanted to sit this one out. I wanted to sit at base camp, and I wanted to kind of see, what we came up with. I did have a couple personal experiences that, when we were all standing there, it sounded like somebody said "whoa" into my ear, and I kind of freaked out a little bit.
Yeah, which I could not find. I remember you
did not
saying
hear
that
either.
I
Yep.
looked all over for it. I could not find it.
Yeah, I listened on 2 recorders. Couldn't.
That was right before the whistle we heard.
Correct.
It was pretty close
But
to
that
that.
we did get that.
Yep.
We did get the whistle, which we heard with our own ears, a couple of us, and then we were able to pick it up on audio, which again, to our listeners, we're going to, make sure we do a compilation of this evidence so you guys can take a listen. We'd love to hear your feedback. Apart from that night, besides that, it was just seeing that orb, and then I thought that I had seen like the door open, but the only thing paranormal was just Rob acting abnormal. Oh no, I guess he was acting normal. He was messing around with the door, and I thought the door was opening, and I took off running down the steps to get them. So anyways, but you guys did a great job. So I just want to thank you from somebody who like utilizes that building as in my side business. So you guys did a great job, and I'm excited for us to sit down with Shelley and have her listen to all of this stuff.
Yeah, I think like I said at the very beginning, I think going into it, I don't know that any of us expected to get what we got out of it. I think we still have more questions than answers.
Yeah.
But I definitely myself think there's something going on there. I don't think there's anything malicious. I don't think there's anything there that should anybody be scared of. I don't think, I mean, I don't want to say residual stuff. There's got to be stuff there that's got to be more intelligent, because if
No,
we're
if
hearing
it's
somebody,
saying names or
if it's
interacting
saying
with
names,
other
it's right.
speech and questions, yeah.
Yeah, and we got enough of those. We didn't just, we were talking, a lot of breaths and a lot of sighs and stuff. We didn't just get that stuff. I've got stuff that are whispers. I've got stuff that sounds like sentences, mumbling, high. I got different things too that shouldn't be where I found them. And a lot of them were on that recorder where nobody was.
Yeah.
For them to be on that recorder, as we've said now through this whole episode, you would have had to been right in that room to do it, I think, because you can hear everybody talking wherever they're at. And rule number one on investigation is you try to minimize the whispering and stuff. And I think everybody did a good job. I think people still were whispering. I'm just as guilty as the next person, because it's just human nature that when you're in the dark walking around and you're doing something, you sometimes you end up mumbling or whispering, but it's the things that were heard that don't make sense. If it was us talking, you'd hear like talking, but whispering talking.
Mm-hmm.
To hear just one word or a couple syllables, they don't make sense. And, I hope somebody listens to them and either can tell me, oh no, we know exactly what that is, or yeah, you're right, there's something there that doesn't make sense. I mean, I wish they would be a little more crystal clear as to what I can hear, because there's several of them that I hear stuff, but I can't tell what it's saying. And I guess that's the classic EVP that people get a lot of, because, a lot of them end up being open to interpretation. I could probably tell you what I think I hear, and then you're going to hear what I said. So it's not,
Right.
I mean, very few, but we've got several, and the Amy's one of them that it's clearly, you can tell what it says. And, I don't know what else to say. I think it was a great investigation. I think we did good. I think we learned some things, like we need to come up with a list for the spirit box.
We didn't talk much about that spirit box. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't impressed with the
No, I don't.
results. And I was
Me
wondering if anybody would get any EVPs during the spirit box session.
Jenny got the one
I
whisper
didn't.
that was during the spirit box session. That sounded like which one was it? I don't even know now.
I thought it was a great.
That was the
opportunity to
whisper
go through
word that was the
spirit
2 or
box.
3 syllables, and it sounded like
Okay.
it says I something. That was what we were trying to do the spirit box session.
That was a long session too, to just
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think-
we were doing a sensory deprivation spirit box session, just for those that are listening. The person had sound canceling headphones, and they were plugged into the spirit box. We were asking questions in the group. The person that was wearing the headphones at the time did not hear the questions. They were seeing if they could pick up. They would just repeat anything that they would pick up off the spirit box as far as words, and we really didn't get any major.
No, it wasn't real impressive.
Or,
The most impressive part was probably Brian saying when Dani said Michelle, only because we think we hear a voice repeat Michelle in a different location in the building. So, I mean, maybe that, but it's all circumstantial. I mean,
right. None of it really went
nothing
together
answered
well.
questions. Nothing was corresponding with the things we were asking. A lot of numbers being thrown out.
and we were asking, we thought maybe we got lottery numbers, and we were asking some hard hitting questions, and we just didn't get it.
Yeah. So,
Including the winning lottery numbers. We didn't
Yes.
get those.
right.
We got 300, 482.
Yeah.
But
We had some.
but it also makes me think, like, what are we rifling through, and
Yep.
AM or FM, and
Yep.
what's really on at that time, or
Yeah.
so what are we actually getting? So I don't know. Glad
I
everybody
think
feels the
800
same
came
way.
up a couple times. W would come up. Well, if you're thinking about
Yeah.
it, you've always got the 1-800 numbers, and it's
Yeah.
WRKR or WRJN or
Or
W whatever.
WLIP.
The one question I had about the spirit box, there was, and I texted Gina about this. Rob, you're the only person who was on it. I could hear when I was listening to one of the other recorders, I could hear faintly the spirit box session. And there was a point when I was under and I yell out Vader, and you and Gina, Rob, the two of you in unison both yell out yes. And I'm dying to know what you guys were talking about. Was it just a coincidence with what I said? Or were you talking about something that Vader went with? Or was it two totally unrelated things? And I shouted
I was just
something
excited you said Vader.
Right. We were all like,
Okay.
Darth. Yeah, right.
Okay. I just yelled out Vader, and you two seemed very excited by it.
Yeah, we were
So,
like, yes. Darth.
okay.
Well,
So
I
that was
figured
just,
with your tattoos, you'd have been a little excited too.
Well, I was thinking to myself, who knows? Maybe, I heard Vader, so I shouted it out. But you guys exclaimed yes. So, okay, that was I just wanted to know what it was. I was assuming if it was something really cool, we would have known about it already, but okay.
It was just cool you were saying Vader. We were just
Okay.
excited.
Which is something really cool. So
It is. Yeah.
I have to say I was at a job interview maybe a month ago. And one of my interview questions was which Star Wars was my favorite, like the OG
Empire Strikes
or
Back.
really,
like
right?
the
Empire Strikes
OG
Back, hands
series.
down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the OG series or the newest one. And I was like,
Yeah.
the question, because it's got to be the OG. So I answered it correctly. I was relieved because otherwise I don't know if I would have wanted to work there. I'm just kidding. If you're listening, David, just joking.
Hands down, Empire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I don't know. I think that about sums up our first official realm investigation, and I think we're all looking for more. So appreciate everybody coming on. If anybody has anything else to add, I think we're gonna say good night for now, and everybody pay attention to what's coming up because we have a lot of exciting things we're going to be planning.
Yes, we have season 3 and season 4 already mapped out for the rest of this year for our topics. I mean, we have enough topics to take us many seasons into the future. So we do have the rest of the year planned out. We'll be back with our weird weekly news segments. So every other week we'll be doing our full episode discussing a single topic. And then Wednesdays we'll be doing our weird weekly news roulette wheel. We'll roll to see who goes first and do some blind reaction delivering of some weird news. If anybody has any weird stories, spooky stories, anything they want to share with us, would like to see us dive into to investigate either in person or just to take a look into it and have a roundtable topic or discussion about it, you can reach out to us at connectedrealm@gmail.com. That's connectedrealm@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Buzzsprout. I'm forgetting some Apple Podcast. Anywhere you get your stuff, we're going to be there. And we're working on our website. That'll be out soon too. So just keep following along. It's just bigger and better.
Sweet.
Right.
All right. Well, with that, good job, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Ciao.
Oh,
Hey,
ooh.
Rob,
Yes, sir.
guess what?
Chicken butt.
Dastardly. You got me.